Hello, hello. Welcome back to our next to last conversation this Women's History Month for the Elevate Coaching Conversation Series, sponsored and hosted by yours truly, Rosella Idewhite, your love big coach. This month for Women's History Month, we have been highlighting and engaging in conversation some incredible women coaches who I believe are changing the game of the coaching industry because of who they are, but also because of what they value and how they show up. So today, I'm so excited to welcome and introduce my friend and former coach training colleague, Miss Lauren DeVera. Welcome, Lauren.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for providing this platform for all of us, for bringing in your classmates and current cohorts of IGC. It's just really nice to see a full circle moment.
Yes. Well, I am so excited for folks to get to know you and to learn about not only who you are, but what you do. Because one of the things that I love about you is that you're multi-passionate, you're creative, and you are figuring out how to blend all of the things that give you joy, that also spark your heart's like passions and are in alignment with your call. And so introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you spend your time. What is it that you do?
Woo! Yes, I am Lauren DeVera. One of our dance teachers at the Lions Den said instead of saying my name is, you say I am Lauren, like because you are so much more than a name. So I thought that would be something nice to
Yes.
share with you all. I reside in Alexandria, Virginia. I'm a second generation Filipina American. And currently, my career entails many different things. I am coaching, I am facilitating workshops. I run a business called the Lions Den, where we present weekly dance classes for adults of all ages and levels to come dance and have a good time and express themselves. I'm also a choreographer, and I'm working on a AAPI film right now that was funded
Yes.
by the Clarice at UMD, and I've been performing. I just did 5 shows in the month of March. And I'm the host of a Thrive and Thread podcast, and I have a dog. I have a dog, and I'm engaged, and I have a bonus daughter. And life has been lifing this month, but
Yeah.
we're navigating that territory, and I try to implement the practices that I provide and encourage for my own clients and friends of how to take care of self
Yep.
throughout that. And yeah, it's nice to see how God will use us in such a way to convey this message that's I think can go way beyond just coaching and teaching, but how we live our life and how we navigate life.
Yes.
So
No, like
yeah.
all of this, right? All the things. And you said a couple of things that I really want to touch on. So for folks that are listening and or watching, right, I think Lauren and I have some shared values around just faith and spirituality and how our lives reflect the gifts that God has given us. But the other thing is that like you are a very multi-talented person. And I feel drawn to that because I've always been the person that people are like, you do all of these things and so many things. And it's like I don't want to say it bothers people, but people are always like, you just got to do the one thing. What's the one thing? And I've always rebelled against that. So could you say a little bit about being someone who is gifted, and we believe gifted by our higher power, by God, with all of these things, and how you have started to carve out a lane to embrace all of who you are, that rather than pushing back against this or pushing back against this idea that you have to just be or do one thing?
Ooh, such a good question. And that's something that I definitely grappled with for a long time and sometimes still do. But
Mhm.
I think God, how he navigated or how he worked it out in my own life was dance was the very first gift that I was aware of. It came natural, and I thankfully had parents that supported my endeavors in dance.
Mhm.
And through dance, that's where I learned how to build community, which I didn't know would end up being my business. And I think that having that experience in dance and having that experience in building community was uh, I was able to leverage that when I entered into the space of coaching. And so, you know, finding the commonalities amongst all these gifts is literally what threads it and holds it together.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe that, God put me here to help other people feel comfortable being themselves, without, this pressure to change or, do more or be more. But how are you right now in this moment? And how do we express that with confidence and with ease? And I think that dance is, as Brene Brown said, is the most vulnerable thing someone can do next to being naked. And
Yes.
I love how she crafted that, because dance comes natural for me. So it didn't occur to me what a vulnerable thing it is to dance. Um,
Yes.
yeah. And so when I facilitate spaces where I have people who have never danced before, or maybe have, body image things, or are quote unquote introverted or shy and don't want to break out of their shell, being able to facilitate a space where they can do that is the sweetest gift. And then as
Mm,
I not just dancing, but teaching dance, right? I've constantly been in front of the room. I'm a natural performer because dance requires us to do that. I was
mhm.
able to take those performance skills, those facilitation skills, and transport that into other spaces such as leading yoga and mindfulness and self-care retreats and things of that sort. Um, and then like finding that I have so much to say, and
Mhm.
that was showing a little bit like back in the day when like Facebook allowed you to write like one sentence, or like when Twitter, I was using
Yes.
Twitter to like drop these little gems. And then I was like, holy moly, like I can expand all these things that I want to say. And, just like the progression of social media and our ability to post like really nice captions on Instagram, to now being able to have a podcast and just openly share my truth. And people will be like, yo, Lauren, you're so busy. How do you do it all? Like you're doing this, you're doing
Mhm.
that. And sometimes it comes with the air of like, you're so busy. And I'm like, it looks like I'm busy, but I actually have a lot of pockets of free time. And someone on Monday asked me, how are you doing it all? And I said, because I love all the things that are on my plate. There isn't
Hmm.
one thing on my plate right now that I don't enjoy or don't love. And yeah, I mean, there are some spaces where it might be a little stressful depending on who you're working with. Like I
Mhm.
still teach dance for other spaces. I teach like currently 5 kid hip hop classes a week on top
Wow.
of, yeah. So that's been kind of a, you know, it's like navigating the energy. So I think to come back to your question around like, how do we navigate being passionate, or however you want to phrase it, is that,
Yeah.
God wouldn't have given me this gift if I wasn't supposed to be using it. I don't believe in letting my gifts be dormant. And if I have it, I have to use it. And like, that's literally my assignment and my calling. And that ties into like what I do with my clients, is helping them utilize their natural gifts and be able to create something from that. And the creativity amongst all these things helps me brainstorm for them, come up with ideas for them. And I would say that is my strong suit, is being able to bring like alternative thinking into the space.
Yeah. Well, and as you said that, Lauren, like what I'm really mindful of, I love that Brene Brown quote to talk about dance is like the most vulnerable thing next to being naked. I grew up as a cheerleader. I danced when I was like high school into college. Like I've always loved moving my body. And it's interesting because I feel like the gifts that you have in that space, no wonder coaching became almost like a natural space, because I think so much of what we do is invite people, at least those of us who are, I think, embodied and seeking alignment for selves and for our clients. Like we invite people to be very vulnerable. Coaching can be a very vulnerable space to be in and to engage, because you have someone who's coming to you who is navigating any sort of thing or is trying to get over limiting beliefs, or, there's all of this stuff that comes with it. So I'm curious, as you think about dance kind of being the thing that was your kind of foundation, you saw that it built community, that you were then able to kind of start business. How did coaching become a part of your repertoire, if you will?
Yeah. When you are a dance teacher or teaching artist or teacher facilitator in any sort, you naturally are held in the light of like leadership.
Mhm.
Um, and because I've developed trust within the dance community by being consistent with my offerings, by being consistent within my own practice, um, you can be good at multiple things. Like it's not like I'm just pulling random things that are not within my wheelhouse that I'm not
Mhm.
good at. I developed that trust with dance because I did that my entire life. Um, but yeah, as far as getting into coaching, it was at the height of the pandemic when a lot of us were reevaluating what we're doing, how we're
Yep.
spending our time. Like before the pandemic, I was teaching about 13 classes a week that were ranging from bar, yoga, dance, meditation. And it was a lot. It was all in person. And I was driving to 2 to 3 different places in one day. And I thought that that was sustainable, or that's the only
Mm.
option that I had. And, God will bring you around people that will inspire you to like move forward on something that maybe crossed your mind a couple years ago. It had been on my heart to explore life coaching like a couple years ago, like I think even before the pandemic. Um, and I was like, all right, God, like, if you want me to do this, like I need help because this costs money to do this
Hmm.
training and things like that. Right. And so yeah, I saw that IGC had their scholarship program, and I knew a couple people that had become life coaches recently, and I was like, wow, this is dope. Like I can literally be myself and get paid to help people. Like, hell yeah, let's do this. Um and so yeah, I think because of the foundation that I built through dance and community building, it felt, I don't want to say easy. I still had to put in work, but I feel like God really aligned that for me to get clients because they trusted me already. And
Yeah.
that's like my number one advice to new coaches is like worry less about like the content making and like the perfect aesthetic. Focus more on building community. Like you need to build a hub of people that trust you and would want to go to you for those things. So um and it's funny how God works too, because when I built the Lion's Den, my community, my dance and wellness community, that literally became something that people looked at as like, wow, she built something from scratch. There's
Hmm.
something that I want to build from scratch. How do I do it? And
Hmm.
that's a lot of the people that I attract often is like people that are looking to step fully into a career that is whether it's creative or entrepreneurship.
Yes. Well, and I mean, we met at the same time. I think we started in the same cohort for coach training, the middle of the pandemic. And I was thinking about this the other day. I think that's also why I feel such an affinity for IGC. Like, amazing, all the things. And it was a container that we navigated during this very
Yeah,
tumultuous time
that's
in our collective and personal lives. And as you
mhm.
as you think about being a coach, right? What are some of those things? So you talked a little bit about creatives who are attracted to you because they've seen you now kind of take these different threads and weave them together. What are some of the things that clients come to you with, right? So it's like, how do I weave this together? It might be, how do I build something from scratch? But what are some of those other themes that you're noticing in the folks that you work with?
Yeah. So I recently ran, hold on, call's coming through. Gotta decline that. Can you see me? Am I moving?
You were frozen, but I can still hear you.
Yep. Okay, hold up. Maybe I stop the video and then come back. Hold up.
There it
All
goes.
right. Okay. There we go. All right, real life. Um, can you repeat the question? Because that threw me off.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. What are some of the themes or things that
Yeah.
you notice, right, that clients who come to work with you are grappling with, wondering about, seeking support around?
Yeah. So often I've been finding that clients come to me, like a good majority of them have come to me because they're not happy with their job or they want to get out of their 9 to 5 and start that project or start that business. And it's interesting because I've grappled with like, oh, should I change my niche, right? And focus on like
Mm,
helping people with their careers. But once we do the coaching work, once we do the inner work, they're realizing that it's really not about changing the scenario. It's not about changing the location or the job. It's about the beliefs that they have about themselves,
yep.
right? And the beliefs that they have about the world and how they should do life and do work. And something that I do within my own program is I help clients visualize what does the ideal work day look like, and I focus in on work day because work takes up majority of our life, majority of the week.
Hmm.
And, it's one thing to like visualize your dream day where you don't have to work, but that's not really the reality for a lot of us. We do have to work in order to live. And so
Yeah.
helping people realize what it is they actually want. And so as coach, I help them embrace their gifts as a multi-passionate person. I help people um forgive themselves, and let go of thinking that because they want to pursue something, that it's not selfish and that they're not disappointing people along the way. And I think
Ooh-wee.
also, as right, like as a person of color, as a child of an immigrant, we have children of immigrants naturally have this indebtedness to please their parents, and indebtedness to like take care of the family. And I'm like witnessing this in real time with my own family. And so I help folks realize that you can pursue your dreams without letting people down. But even if you let people down, even if you
Right.
disappoint people along the way, how do you hold yourself despite that? Because we can't please everyone, right? If we're pleasing everyone, then we're not pleasing ourselves, and we're the only one that is paying for it. Um, and so through like my background in mindfulness and positive psychology is about helping us discover how to thrive, not just survive. It's how do we flourish,
Yeah.
right? a
Yeah.
lot of our a lot of our baseline is just like go to work, have a family, get the house, repeat, rinse and repeat. Positive psychology and the work and my own beliefs is centered around we can have fun and joy along the way. We can have
Yeah.
joy and creativity despite what life is throwing our way. um yeah, and I think through my ability to articulate that and my ability to hold space, which is our job as coach, which is why I love your energy. Like you and I
Oh,
felt like we were like little
yep.
spirit sisters on IGC, even though
Yeah.
we weren't partners or anything, like I just always connected with you whenever you spoke. And, I think it is a God given gift to be able to hold space in such a natural way that
Yeah.
someone feels comfortable to be vulnerable. And I think you do that very well. So,
Oh,
yeah.
thank you. Thank you. As you were talking, I mean, you beautifully wove together two things, right, that I wanted to ask you about. So, one is around culture and identity, right? So, as the child of immigrants, as someone who is Filipina, we know that our cultures and our identities bring with them a ton, right? Whatever that ton is. I say that as an Afro Latina, and it's interesting. Over the last probably 5 years, I'm starting to recognize that my mother, even though her people were from Puerto Rico, like she was the first one that was really raised in the States, right? Like obviously Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States, and we can talk about all of the colonization and all of that still is persistent. But there was a lot of immigrant ways of being that my mother was raised in and under, and this care for the collective over self, right? And I feel like so much of my work in this season has been bringing that into balance, which is, it feels hard sometimes. And it does feel like I'm disappointing folks sometimes. And it's not that I'm forfeiting the collective. I mean, I live in an intergenerational house. There are 8 of us, right? Like this is part and parcel of who I am, but I am making choices that sometimes go against the expectations, the ways that things have been done before. So I'm curious for folks of color that you might work with, or even as you're just thinking about folks of color who are either from immigrant families or just have that collective consciousness, what are some invitations that you give to folks around standing in their power and truth, even as, right, the collective is bearing down and has expectations of you?
Ooh, such a good question. Yeah, I'm like, my mind's like, how do I start answering this? Um, I think a lot about how our parents moved to the States so that we could have a life that they couldn't. But
Mhm.
we still somehow are bound to like repeating what they did in some capacity, which a lot of that is like
Mhm.
scarcity mindset, or like
Yes.
I joke around, like, I'm sure other cultures do this, but like how we save every plastic bag, or like the Cool
Girl.
Whip container becomes the container for snacks, or like just like scarcity all around, that there isn't enough to go around. And that's something that I've really had to unpack. And even within my own culture, I don't know if you've experienced this, but like sometimes there's this inherent quiet competition between Filipino women or Asian women, like, oh, if there's
Mhm.
another Asian girl in the room, then there's no room for me, right?
Mhm.
And like
Mhm.
capitalism and like white supremacy has kind of shaped how we view, like, if I'm a minority, there can only be one of me in order for me to
Yes.
get the opportunity, right? And so um I think when it comes to having clients that are children of immigrants or people of color, it's helping them rethink how they view life and questioning, is that thought or belief really yours, or is it because it was instilled into you?
Right.
And let's take a look at that belief. Is this something you actually value and want to abide by? And a lot of the bread work and foundation of my work is like, let's take a look at your values. Does your life align with your values? And are these values yours, or are they your culture's values? Or are they your mom and dad's values, or your grandparents' values? And so it really begins with healing the relationship with self. If
Oh,
I acknowledge my worthiness, if I acknowledge that, there will be moments where I feel like I'm the only one standing on this island because it's not looking like what my siblings' careers look like, or it's
mm-hmm.
not looking like what my parents thought my career would look like. You know, you have to cultivate a strength and a resilience in order to sustain standing on that isolated island. And your vision has to really ground you in order for you to keep going. And like, my vision and my connection to God is so strong that like, I knew that I am not supposed to be in a 9 to 5 job, just clocking in and clocking out. And no shade to those who do have a 9 to 5 job. Like, we all need people to be in certain spaces, but you need to know what space you're being called to. And
Yes.
if you are constantly listening to other people's voices and you never have time to sit and reflect in your own oneness, in your own solitude, then you'll probably just end up repeating the same cycles that you've seen in your family. And like, life's too short to do that. If I'm going to be here, I want to enjoy it. And I know what my values are. I value having fun. I don't believe in like waiting for the 4 week vacation or the 2 week vacation.
No.
Like, I want to have fun every day. And if someone
Yes.
else wants to judge me on that, and this is something that I'm learning now, like, people are judging you based on the judgment they uphold for themselves.
Yep. Yep.
So if you're receiving harsh judgment, it's because that person's actually subconsciously envious that you get to do what you want to do. That person's maybe bitter that they didn't decide or choose themselves. And I just released a
Yeah.
podcast episode on choosing yourself and not waiting to be chosen, whatever capacity that is. And I think inherently I've been waiting to be chosen from my family because I have a blended family. And um God's just telling me like, baby girl, I chose you.
Yeah.
And you've been waiting to be chosen from people who have not chosen themselves. So you will not be chosen.
Listen, come on. This is a whole other conversation that we're going to have one day, right? About this, because, and I'm so grateful. So my brother and I are doing this entrepreneurial journey together. And I feel so grateful that we have each other because it is an island, right? It is something that our parents, even as they love and want the best for us and do support us, don't always understand. And it can be very easy to be dissuaded, to be discouraged, to feel like the vision that you have isn't either real or you were mistaken somehow. So even as you're talking about what does it mean to choose ourselves, and I think that that's something in coaching, both being coached and as a coach, I'm constantly inviting people to shift from being other-centered to being self-centered, and self-centered not in the navel-gazing way, but being grounded in self, in divinity, in belovedness, right? Because as we do that, I think that it also shines a light for other people to do that. And what you said about judgment, I'm recognizing, so for me, all of this goes with self-compassion and care, but I'm recognizing that the way people tend to be with us is how they are with themselves, if not worse with themselves, right? So what we get is actually a reflection of how they feel about and treat themselves. And I think that that has been something that has awakened me and helped me to have more compassion, honestly, for others, because I'm like, well, damn, if they're judging me like this, or if they're feeling this way about me, how do they feel about themselves? Like, what is going on in their life, in their spirit, in their all of who they are, that this is something that's coming up, right?
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
Um, so my program is titled Roots and Fruits because to me, a fulfilling life, the fruits that you bear is a reflection
Of your
of
roots.
you. And so, right, of your roots. Exactly. I love that. Yes. So when I'm getting judged hard by people, whether it's in my family or elsewhere, I always take a look at their fruits. How are their relationships? How are they living their life? How
Listen.
do they talk to people? How do they, and if it's not at all in alignment with my heart and soul, then that's like that's your green light of like, or your get out of jail free card or
Yeah,
whatever.
like let it go. Like we're not
Yeah,
even
like let it
gonna,
go.
yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's
Well, well, the other thing I wanted to ask you about too is that one of your modalities is in positive psychology, right? And so I am curious about what that means. I think you said a little bit about like this is about people thriving and flourishing, but there's such, I think for good reason, right? The way that positivity is used in a way that is toxic, that is not helpful. Share a little bit about what positive psychology is and maybe what it isn't, as you coach and teach and train and facilitate with this as one of your tools.
Yeah, so positive psychology can get a bad rap because of its name. So it's actually not about being positive. It's about how do humans flourish. The rest of psychology is about diagnosis and like what's wrong and what's wrong with you and like what do you need for that versus positive psychology has literally given me all the tools on how to navigate mindset. That's where I
Mhm.
first learned about growth mindset, fixed mindset. This is where I learned about like gratitude and joy. And so all these things that help us to be flourishing humans and how do we flourish in our relationships.
Yeah.
So the name almost doesn't make sense. Like I don't even think the word positive really alludes to that. It's about how do we as humans um, not just focus on what's wrong with us, but how do we make our life better every day? And so positive psychology gives us those tools on how to navigate when we are in when we're in conflict. They literally have
Mhm.
exercises and diagrams and science backed exercises and research that has shown, how do we navigate conflict? Who are you? What's your role when you're navigating conflict? Are you the dramatizer? Are you the one who's amplifying it? Are you the
Yeah.
mediator? And so having language and visuals and tools on how to navigate everyday life hiccups has been so powerful for me, not just as a coach, but in how I navigate my personal life. So yeah, it's really the science of humans flourishing. Like, how do we flourish, not just stay on this baseline, right? Just because there's an absence of negativity or there's an absence of problems doesn't mean you're flourishing. It could just mean you're on this
Listen.
baseline, you're just kind of coasting, right? And so positive psychology helps us flourish with science-backed tools and resources.
There, and this is interesting when you said that and you were using that imagery of kind of the up and down, right? As kind of a sign of flourishing, because we also know like we can only experience the amount of joy as we allow ourselves to experience the grief, as then we allow ourselves to experience the joy. And I feel like it's an Instagram video that's going around of an actors roundtable. And I don't know, is the guy James Pope who talked about the example of, when you're getting your heart monitored, you want to see the up and down because if it's straight, you flatlined, right? So this reality that I think that the invitation that coaching um, issues to people is that life will be up and down. And the goal is not for us to live kind of this flatlined existence. The goal is for us to navigate the ups and downs, but in ways that lead us to flourishing, in ways that lead us to coming home to ourselves, in ways for me, and I think for you, that serve our community, in ways that reflect, right, the vision and the gifts and the call that the divine has given us. So I love everything about this and about you. So thank you so much. How can people connect with you? How can people work with you? Tell us what you've got coming up. What do you want the folks to know?
Well, thank you, Rosella, for facilitating this and holding space for me. Let's see. I'm the host of the Thrive and Thread podcast. So I have meditations, a couple interviews on there, all about how to thrive and thread these elements
Mhm.
so that we can flourish. So it's Thrive and Thread on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. On Instagram, I'm the Lauren DeVera. And same thing on Twitter. I currently have doors open for my group coaching program, Roots and Fruits, empowering visionaries to embrace their gifts, master their mindset, and take action. So doors are open for that as well. And all of this can be found on my website or on my Instagram. And
Yeah.
if you are in the DC metropolitan area and you want to take a dance class, follow the Lions Den DMV. I also facilitate online wellness classes through them as well.
Yes. Well, I did share with Lauren, I'll be back in the DMV soon. I try to go at least quarterly. So I'm definitely going to sign up for a dance class this go around.
Can't
And
wait.
just, Lauren, thank you so much for being with us today. So appreciate you and are grateful for the ways that you've said yes to your call and how that's showing up in your day-to-day life, because we are better for it. So
Thank you,
for all of
Rosella.
those, yes, you're so welcome. For all of those listening and or watching, thank you for joining us for today's installation of the Elevate Coaching Conversation Series, where we help you consider new possibilities and create new realities through the power of coaching. On Friday, we have our last conversation in this quarterly series. We'll be back in June, but in this quarterly series, we have our last conversation right here on Facebook Live at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can also catch the playlist over on YouTube. So thank you for joining us.